All right. I know we started a little light there, but it is a way to get into this conversation about Air Force One and how important it is, especially when you are using it to transport the most powerful and important, arguably, person in the world, the head of the United States military, the President of the United States. So, Carol, when he said this yesterday, he just tossed off that, oh, it's going to fly solo to visit some troops. That's why I'm not flying on the new one. It obviously raised a lot of very serious questions. What have you learned?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the humor and I understand where you're going with Harrison Ford. But yeah, this is deadly serious. And what the president claimed yesterday, we are told by our sources, was just false. It had nothing to do with the reason that the president switched planes in Turkey and got onto what he considers the old and antiquated Air Force One, and which security officials view as a military heat shield, the best and most advanced place, the safest place for the leader of the free world to be when we are in increased hostilities with Iran, as began on Wednesday morning when the president was essentially about to take off and head to the UK.
Priya, why in Turkey did he decide to change planes? What had to do with the location? What does this location have to do with the decision?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And a lot of folks have been asking, he obviously felt safe enough to fly from the United States over to Turkey for the NATO summit in the newly gifted Qatari plane, despite the fact that many national security officials have been advising him that he really shouldn't be taking this plane on overseas trips. And what we're hearing from our sources is that at the time they considered that airspace to be friendly. But once he landed in Turkey and once, as Carol mentioned, hostilities reignited over in the Middle East and airstrikes were launched on Iran. And then Iran attempted to bomb both Kuwait and Bahrain, that, of course, that assessment changed. And really, it comes down to what Carol was mentioning, the fact that this Air Force One is supposed to be a flying White House Situation Room, as you mentioned. The president should be able to receive classified intelligence briefings. He should be able to securely communicate with military officers around the world and also authorize things like airstrikes on Iran, which is what he did shortly after he took off on the old Air Force One.
So bring me behind the decision to fly the Qatari jet in the first place to Turkey, LBL.
Well, this is the jet that the president said is his new Air Force One. It's the one that he rolled out not long ago, just a week or so ago. And he has been wanting this jet for a long time. You could say going back to his first term, because it was back then that President Trump often talked about having a newer, nicer Air Force One. And even though there were plans underway starting around 2018 to retrofit new Boeings to become Air Force One, they aren't ready yet. And that was something that the president wanted to be able to have in this second term, a brand new Air Force One that he feels is up to snuff, that they have described as a palace in the sky. And so they unveiled it, saying that this was now going to be what he is flying wherever he goes, saying that the old Air Force One that he had been using would be retired. And that's why he took it to Turkey, because it's the one that he has been using since they unveiled it. Now, of course, when we asked the White House, does this mean that I asked them again today, is the president going to continue to use this new Qatari gifted Air Force One when he flies overseas, given what they ran into when they went to Turkey and deciding not to bring it home? And they didn't answer that question, whether or not it would be continued to use overseas. Instead, Stephen Chung simply saying that this is a state-of-the-art aircraft that has been fitted with high-level security protocols that ensure the president of the safety of the president and his staff. And so they continue to claim that they're going to be using this Air Force One, the Qatari gifted one, going forward.
So, Richard, let's talk about the Qatari gifted Air Force One specifically. They've had about a year to try to retrofit it. Is that not enough time?
Not nearly enough. It's almost laughable, the whole concept of creating a missionized and integrated and self-protected jet in that time, especially since it has been in kind of a dangerous neighborhood, not just, just the immediate neighbors, but people who could get into that territory and, attach bugs, tracking devices, God knows what. So you'd have to go over it with a fine-tooth comb first. Make sure that nothing had gotten into it. There's a reason that these things are normally built in extremely secure facilities with the entire supply chain built in secure facilities. So they'd have to do that first. And whatever time is left over, they could add on whatever systems bolted on, both for encrypted communications and for self-protection. That would normally require 3, 4, 5 years minimum. And here they had a matter of months and much less money. So it's safe to say this is nothing like a truly capable and integrated Air Force One.
How dangerous is it for the president to get on a plane like this, even if it's domestic? I mean, as Carol's reporting, you can't refuel it. And the reason that's important, we can only have to look back to 9/11 when that plane stayed in the air, Air Force One stayed in the air to make sure that this country was safe after the attacks of 9/11. How dangerous is it to put a president in a plane like that when it doesn't have that ability and doesn't have missile defense systems, Richard?
Well, we don't know what it does have in terms of missile defense. Probably some kind of capability that was added, kind of a bolt-on system. In terms of truly integrated electronic countermeasures and missile defenses, now very, very unlikely. How dangerous is that? And, it depends on the circumstances. Obviously, sane heads prevailed this time and said, hey, this is an uncertain time and an uncertain place. We'd better err on the side of caution. Thankfully, they did. I think the most important thing is how well the president could conduct, operations around the globe with other battlefield commanders and whatever in a national security crisis. 9/11, as you say. And the answer here is, well, probably not as effectively as with the previous or the next fully integrated Air Force One.
But Carol, it has been an uncertain time, and Turkey has been in the area an uncertain place. It didn't become uncertain when Donald Trump landed. It was uncertain before he took off. How does a decision get made to fly a plane like this to that area, given all that you've reported?
Yeah, the perfect, pristine question here, Katie. A Secret Service source told me last night when Priya and I were working on this story that, and hats off to her, by the way, for all of her detailed reporting about the capabilities of this plane and the risks that former Air Force generals raised about him taking it anywhere. End of story. North Dakota, Mount Rushmore, wherever he wanted to go, they didn't want him to do it because it wasn't considered as safe. The Secret Service source who I spoke to last night said this is a dancing on the head of a pin in a way, because the service wants Donald Trump to be happy. They do not want to embarrass him, but they do not want him to be in danger, which is a worse sort of fate for them, if you will. They do not want him to be in peril in the way that many people thought George Bush was flying around in the middle of 9/11, and there was real panic about that. Was he somewhere safe? And they didn't feel that he was. The Secret Service knows, top officials in the Secret Service know, according to my source, that the president is embarrassed by the idea of having to switch out this plane, which is part of the reason he apparently sort of made up a story about showing it off to troops in the UK. And they are trying to placate a person who has insisted this plane is perfect, and they are trying to, sorry to put finer words on this, but they're trying to save his life and save the stability of the democracy at the same time.
So